Today, I want to talk about whether or not Vox has feelings for Alastor, and more interestingly, whether or not Alastor seems to have some sort of feelings for Vox. Though before you start spamming the comments saying he's asexual, try to hear me out on what I'm actually talking about in this video. This all started with episode 4 of season 2, where we got an interesting flashback giving us insight into the relationship between Vox and Alastor. But seasons 1 and 2 are largely framed by the conflict between them. But as we saw in the flashback, they were once friends, or at the very least, friendly. In the flashbacks themselves, Vox claims that Alastor and Vox had become really close in the last few years, and the way he is acting nervous in this scene makes it seem like he is really sincere. Vox is canonically bisexual from what I understand, getting into sexual escapades with other men like Valentino, but also being interested in women, and it seems like he genuinely had feelings for Alastor here as well. The thing is, when he talks about how much they seem to be great together, he even talks about how other people like them together, which indicates that they've been seen in public and interacted together. In the present, Alastor really hates video, so I'm not sure he would appear on screen with Vox back in the day, but maybe in the early days, he and Vox would interact in other forms. Whether it's in person, like at the bar we see here, or even just in the medium of radio with Alastor. Having Vox do radio interviews about this new little fad, as Alastor would call it, the television. From Alastor's point of view in the present, he says that he thought Vox was actually becoming something like an equal to him. If Alastor did seriously think of TV as a passing fad to start, he's at least claiming in the present that he thought Vox could use it the way that he uses radio. This, of course, can just be part of Alastor's attempt to make Vox more insecure about what happened, as he's dragging this story up to taunt him. But he may be playing off of things that were true, feelings Alastor did have in order to really rub the salt in the wound that Alastor essentially rejected Vox because he was too clingy. Finally, the episode ended with the two getting into a heated musical duet that had them breathing heavily in each other's faces like they either just had sex or were about to. Valentino himself comments on this, asking them if that is what they're about to do, and of course, as the overlord of adult films, if he can record it. A lot of their fans from decades ago would apparently have liked this, but of course, it's a very interesting thing to paint Alastor and Vox's relationship as. Alastor, as I said, is canonically asexual, but one thing a lot of fans don't think about with these labels is the nuance that can come with it for a certain character. According to the early livestream lore, which of course isn't necessarily canon, so take with a grain of salt here, Alastor believes himself to be what we would call a normal straight man. While he's known to be asexual to Vivziepop and thus now the audience with her confirmation, he isn't someone who has thought about that label or dwelt on it. Alastor came from a time where those sort of labels weren't really well known, and even just the other labels that eventually led to asexuality becoming more mainstream weren't exactly accepted. With that in mind, while Alastor is asexual, he was described in the early livestream lore as thinking of himself as straight, imagining one day meeting a woman he wants to be with, but simply never finding her yet in his quest for more power. Though part of the reason he finds this lie so easy to believe is he does find women in general to be delightful and pleasant company. His relationship with men, however, is a lot more antagonistic. According to the early livestream lore, Alastor tends to define other men by their worst traits, and sees them more as active players in the game of life, or in this case, the game of the afterlife. It's men who are supposed to conquer, be brutal, and even be violent with each other, and Alastor sees that as something they're not allowed to inflict on women, with women and even just smaller, more fair demons being things that he needs to protect. But the dynamic he has seeing only other men as active players in the game he is in leads to some pent-up tension with other players like Vox. This isn't because Alastor has this tension with men in general, but as we said already, he was saying that he saw Vox as some sort of equal, and as Valentino pointed out, there was some sort of tension that developed because of it. The thing is that Alastor believes in nothing but getting as much power as possible, and for someone else to also accumulate a lot of power in the ways that he has with his industry, leaving out the fact that he gets a lot of his power from Rosie, it would make sense that the only person he saw as his sort of equal, which is the closest he gets to a partner, is someone else who had done the same as him. So in the world of asexual Alastor, where he thinks he's interested in women, but tends to have his most meaningful relationships be with other men, Vox is essentially the most passionate relationship that he has, especially with everyone in hell wanting him to end up with Vox based on their public image back in the day. So as far as an asexual with self-perceived interest in women goes, it's an incredibly tense dynamic to have with another man. But Vox ruined this by wanting to go from just equals existing side by side to being actual partners. And unfortunately, the two seem to be very defined by this falling out, particularly Vox. He's kind of a manipulative shark now, what with him having gills, and I imagine he was a TV shark as you called it back in his life on Earth, but with Alastor, he seems to be acting very genuine and even nervous. He doesn't seem to be manipulating people people personally, and I think it's from here that he realizes he needs to start doing that. After being put down by Alastor and made fun of by him, he starts to realize that he can't be vulnerable with his feelings, especially when trying to create powerful relationships. Now, Vox doesn't seem to go into relationships when he's uncertain, and he definitely doesn't seem to offer people equal power. Following his split with Alastor, if we can even really call it a split, eventually Valentino would come into Hell and revolutionize what Vox could use his screens for with adult films. A market you couldn't really tap with public television during his life on Earth, but now that he's in Hell, he's finding ways to make all of these things cross over with no moral boundaries. Vox and Valentino definitely have a dynamic that goes just beyond sex, I would say. And I think the most obvious example of this is all the way back in episode 1 of the season when Vox is showing Valentino all of the times that he is hit Angel. After this, Valentino just blows it off saying that Vox is obsessed with him, and Vox even gets blushed in the face, making it clear to me that he does have some feelings for Valentino, even if it doesn't have the exact same feelings he had for Alastor. With Valentino, there seems to be the promise that they were going to work together, but Valentino doesn't seem to have the kind of brain power that Vox has, and Vox doesn't seem to be willing to let anyone into his inner circle who isn't under his complete control. Because of that, he keeps acting like this is some big plan he has in order to elevate himself, Valentino, and even his third V, Velvet. But everything he does is really for his own goals, and he uses other people's resources even when they don't want it. Valentino and Velvet are already acting early on in this season like Vox is the one going off the rails with this huge plan, and while they are involved with it, it's really for his own self-aggrandizement. It's about Vox wanting to become a god in a singular sense, not ruling with Velvet and Valentino by his sides as anything more than useful tools. It's sad to think that if Vox hadn't met Alastor, he might have a different relationship with Valentino. Right now they get along together, and they seem to have this fake family with Valentino and Vox being fathers and Velvet being their teenage daughter who took over social media. But after what happened with Alastor, it seems like Vox isn't willing to let another man or woman get close to him in the same way, and instead all he does now is focus on himself and focus on making deals that put other people in his control instead of elevating them to the level of partners. But what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you want even more Hazbin Hotel goodness, don't forget to subscribe here or to sign up for our early access memberships program. With each episode of Hazbin Hotel that gets released, I put my thoughts in one big audio file right here on the channel for everyone to listen to in our early access club. And even after finishing those, we also have our Atlantis 2 mythological breakdown, which a lot of you were requesting after the Atlantis 1 video did so well, as well as a breakdown of the Magical Girl anime, Magical Girl Madoka. Links as always are in the pinned comment down below, but don't forget to subscribe as these videos will be made public eventually. See you guys next time.